Hi, and welcome to the book of the month for August, Lodestone Book 1, The Sea of Storms by Mark Whiteway. Normally I would read the synopsis from the back cover, but apart from 4 short reviews, the only other writing states, and I quote, Mark Whiteway lives in rural West Sussex, England, near the former home of H.G. Wells. A lifelong devotee of H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, this is Mark's first science fiction novel, built around the concept of negative matter, an extension of Einstein's theory of general relativity. Unquote. But please don't let that put you off. I have to start off by saying that I am terribly shallow when it comes to book covers. Perhaps you're the same. If a cover doesn't grab my attention, I will wander to whatever is next on the bookshelf at Waterstones or online. The cover of Lodestone, The Sea of Storms, is nice, but it did not grab me. I read the synopsis on Amazon, as the back cover has only cryptic references to the contents, and thought it was interesting, but not normally what I would automatically be drawn to. Then I started to read it, and what a pleasant revelation. The writing style is absolutely wonderful. It is rare to find an author who paints such a detailed tapestry so effortlessly. On page 2, the main plot line ignites, and we start to be drawn into the story that begins with an almost random confrontation. Before I put The Sea of Storms down the first evening, I had read almost a third of the 278 pages. Nothing is included that does not need to be there. The story is tightly narrated and flows rapidly. It begins with 2 main threads: an idealistic youth who wants to save the world, and a cynical Keltar, an enforcer, who is sent to stop him. The backdrop to the action includes a compulsory religion led by a mysterious prophet, who is not what he seems, and remnants of a long-forgotten technology that holds the clue to the future of the entire Kalani race. A chance mishap and a dire warning calling from the distant past sets the snowball of events rolling on its unstoppable path. From this point on we are taken on a cat-and-mouse chase to find an ancient tower and the technology it contains. However, just as they reach their goal, the story takes a dramatic twist. But sorry, no spoilers allowed. The best way to describe the writing style is to read a couple of short excerpts and see if you find it as pleasing as I. Page 51. Keris got to her feet and moved back a few steps out of sight, extracting an identical sphere and setting it carefully in a crevice. She turned it until she could see a fisheye view of the road as it wound through the hills. The 2 spheres were linked, but unlike the rings, the link was one way. She sat with her legs crossed and her cloak tucked under her, watching the sphere set in the rock surface, planning her next actions. 3 hostiles. Objective: neutralize 2, retain 1 for questioning. Tactical assessment mandates isolation and containment protocol. However, common sense suggested such precautions were hardly necessary. A musician, a slip of a girl, and a man who had delusions of being a Keltar. The impostor would have to come with her, of course, and you'd have to explain how he obtained the cloak and the staff. But she was inclined to simply let the others go. They appeared to be of no threat. At most they were guilty of allying themselves with a madman, and she had seen more than enough unnecessary death and suffering of late. A movement on the road below. The sphere showed a distorted image of 3 figures and 2 Morgan rounding the bend of the gully. She obviously could not leap off a 100-foot drop on the chance that there would be a deposit of lodestone to break her fall. Her plan was rather to allow them to continue through and to be waiting for them at the other end, where they would have nowhere to run. Time to finish this. Keris picked up the sphere and returned it to her pouch, then went over to retrieve the other sphere and the discs. A shadow. She made to turn, but was caught by a vicious blow to the side of her head. She fell heavily on her side. Her ears felt encased in fog, muffling all sound. She tried to open her eyes, and had an impression of a huge shape, wings outstretched as if to claim her. Then a crushing pain in her side, and in her right leg. The searing crimson of agony faded to the absolute blackness of oblivion. The second excerpt is taken from page 134. As the lever reached the down position, Keris felt a low rumble, followed by a faint downward pressure. She opened her eyes. Released from its mountings, the sphere was now rising into the air above the tower, under the influence of the lodestone platform. Keris moved to the handrail next to Lyle and held on. It was a thrilling experience, and she could feel her heart beating faster. She was filled with awe at a people who could have fashioned such wonders, her ancestors. The sphere reached its maximum height. Through the jammed open door she could see blue lightning playing about the exterior surface of the great globe. It was spectacular. A low whine started up and rose in pitch. A massive concussion. They were all hurled to one side. Keris and Lyle held onto the handrail, but Sean and Alondo lost their grip and tumbled over and over inside the globe. The ball that was Box rolled around but seemed otherwise unaffected. Another huge bang, a sense of falling, the impact of the sphere against the stone platform. Keris was bounced around and fell with the others in a disorientated heap. Her head felt muzzy. She put her hand to her temple, it felt wet. White blood stained the tips of her fingers. She forced her mind to analyse what had happened. The Prophet's men had caught up with them. A petard, a larger version of the Lodestone grenade. They had used petards to bring down the sphere somehow, maybe by destroying the mechanism that controlled it. It didn't matter. What mattered was that the sphere was not going to rise again, and with only one exit it would soon become a trap if they did not move. So, to sum up The Sea of Storms, it's an excellent read. It's one of those rare books that's like a fine wine, much more than the sum of its parts. Highly recommended, and I advise you to get a copy as soon as possible. It's a brilliant read. It's part of a trilogy and I just can't wait to review part 2. So wherever you are in internet land, good morning, good evening or good night. Thank you for watching OnePages.com, the independent book review site.